Two towering figures in martial arts history, bound by destiny but divided by philosophy, crossed paths at a moment when neither cameras nor crowds were present to witness what unfolded. Bruce Lee and Bolo Yeung are names etched permanently into combat folklore, remembered for their unforgettable confrontation in Enter the Dragon, a film that reshaped martial arts cinema forever. Yet what history rarely discusses is what happened beyond the lights, beyond the choreography, beyond the carefully rehearsed sequences that audiences came to know. Away from scripts and studio schedules, there existed a confrontation that stripped both men of characters and roles, leaving only fighters, beliefs, and truth. This story does not begin in a theater or on a polished set, but behind closed doors during the final stretch of production in 1973, when Enter the Dragon was being shaped into Bruce Lee's ultimate statement to the world. For Bruce, this film was never just another role, it was his life's work condensed into a single vision, an opportunity to demonstrate authentic combat as philosophy made physical. Every movement mattered, every strike carried intention, and every scene reflected years of relentless inquiry into what truly worked when illusion was removed. Central to that vision was a confrontation he deeply believed in, a clash that symbolized opposing paths in martial arts thinking. Bolo Yeung's character represented raw force, tradition, and physical domination, while Bruce's embodied adaptability, intelligence, and evolution. The conflict was meant to be more than spectacle, it was meant to be a dialogue expressed through combat. But when studio executives intervened, making the decision to reduce Bolo's presence and eliminate that pivotal confrontation entirely, the balance shifted. The rationale was commercial, not philosophical. Warner Brothers wanted a single focal climax, a clean narrative arc culminating in the now legendary Mirror Room sequence. From a business standpoint, it made sense. From a martial arts standpoint, it was a loss. What had been carefully crafted as a symbolic duel of ideas was erased. Bruce felt the weight of compromise, while Bolo felt the sting of dismissal. Neither man openly protested, but the atmosphere on set changed. Creative frustration turned into quiet tension, and professional respect evolved into something sharper. To understand why that moment carried such significance, one must step back and understand where these men came from, because their paths could not have been more different. Bruce Lee was born in San Francisco in 1940, raised in the chaos and competitiveness of Hong Kong, where street violence was not hypothetical but immediate. Survival demanded effectiveness, not tradition. His early training under Ip Man gave him structure, but Bruce's restless mind refused limitation. He questioned forms, challenged doctrine, and searched relentlessly for efficiency. By the time he returned to America with little more than determination and belief, he had already begun dismantling rigid systems in favor of adaptability. Teaching students from different backgrounds, blending boxing, fencing, wrestling, and Wing Chun, he committed what many traditionalists considered heresy. Yet Bruce saw evolution. His creation, Jeet Kune Do, rejected style itself, emphasizing directness, economy of motion, and personal expression. Bolo Yeung's journey moved in the opposite direction. Born in mainland China and raised within classical discipline, he embraced structure rather than dismantling it. Years of traditional training shaped his technique, while bodybuilding forged his body into something almost mythic. By his early 20s, his physique alone commanded attention, earning him the Mr. Hong Kong bodybuilding title repeatedly for a decade. Where Bruce refined speed and efficiency, Bolo cultivated mass and power. Each man became the embodiment of his philosophy, unknowingly moving toward a moment where those philosophies would be tested, not in theory, but in truth. By the time production on Enter the Dragon neared completion, Bruce Lee and Bolo Yeung stood as living contrasts, not just in appearance, but in essence. Bruce's body was lean, precise, engineered for speed and endurance rather than spectacle. Every pound served a purpose, every movement minimized waste. His training emphasized explosion without tension, power generated through perfect sequencing rather than brute force. Observers often remarked that watching Bruce spar felt unreal, as if time itself lagged behind his actions. Strikes appeared and vanished before opponents could react, leaving confusion in their wake. Yet what made Bruce truly dangerous was not speed alone, but awareness. He read patterns instinctively, adjusted mid-exchange, and treated combat like a living puzzle that evolved with every second. He flowed rather than resisted, applied pressure without overcommitting, and used intelligence as his primary weapon. Bolo Yeung presented an entirely different equation. Though similar in height, his frame carried immense density. Thick muscle layered upon bone, arms like steel cables, shoulders built to overwhelm. His presence alone could dominate a room, and his fighting style reflected that intimidation. Bolo believed in imposing will, closing distance, and ending conflicts through overwhelming force. His strikes carried concussive power, and when they landed cleanly, few could remain standing. This approach had proven effective countless times, particularly in short engagements where power decided outcomes quickly. On set, martial artists and stunt performers sensed the undercurrent between the two men. Informal demonstrations during breaks were never truly casual. When Bruce showcased speed, Bolo responded with strength. When one displayed technique, the other answered with raw physicality. Neither spoke openly of competition, yet both understood the question hanging silently between them. When news spread that Bolo's major fight scene had been permanently removed, something shifted. What had once been professional frustration transformed into personal motivation. Bolo felt reduced to background muscle, his martial identity overlooked. Bruce, aware but powerless to change studio decisions, carried his own internal conflict. Eventually, the unspoken tension surfaced. Bolo issued a challenge, direct and uncompromising. Not a demonstration, not choreography, a real sparring match, stripped of performance. No rules beyond mutual understanding, no audience beyond a few trusted witnesses. For Bolo, this was about validation. For Bruce, it was about truth. He had spent his life refining an approach built on efficiency and adaptability, and here stood the perfect test. Without hesitation, Bruce accepted. When the encounter began, the immediate contrast was clear. Bruce controlled distance effortlessly, circling, darting in and out, striking with precision before retreating beyond reach. Bolo advanced aggressively, attempting to close space and delivered decisive blows, but found himself chasing shadows. Bruce's footwork dismantled Bolo's strategy, forcing him to expend energy without result. Minute after minute passed, and the dynamic remained unchanged. Bruce's strikes accumulated damage without overexertion, while Bolo's powerful attacks increasingly struck empty air. As time stretched on, the difference in conditioning became undeniable. Bolo's breathing grew labored, his movements slower, his reactions delayed. Bruce remained composed, rhythm steady, eyes alert. The fight did not end with dramatic collapse or sudden submission. It ended with exhaustion, with Bolo's body no longer able to obey his will. He conceded not in defeat of spirit, but in recognition of reality. The outcome was not humiliation, but revelation. Strength alone, no matter how impressive, could not compensate for inefficiency over time. Endurance, strategy, and adaptability had quietly decided the contest. When the encounter concluded, neither man celebrated. There was no triumph, no gloating, only understanding. Bolo Yeung had faced a truth that reshaped his perspective, realizing that power without balance carried limitations. Bruce Lee had witnessed his philosophy validated under the most honest conditions imaginable. What emerged was mutual respect, deeper than what existed before. Bolo recognized the completeness of Bruce's approach, while Bruce acknowledged the courage it took for Bolo to test himself without guarantees. The fight revealed something timeless about martial arts itself. No single path holds all answers. Power can dominate moments, but endurance governs outcomes. Tradition provides foundation, but evolution ensures survival. In the years that followed, Bolo adjusted his training, incorporating conditioning and efficiency without abandoning his strength. Bruce continued refining his ideas, though fate would not grant him the time to fully realize their future. When Bruce Lee passed away just months after the film's release, the world mourned a legend. But those who knew of this unseen encounter carried something more personal. They had witnessed the difference between performance and reality, between image and substance. This confrontation never appeared on screen, never reached mainstream audiences, yet its lessons spread quietly through dojos and gyms across generations. Fighters learned that stamina mattered as much as technique, that intelligence could overcome raw force, and that questioning tradition was not betrayal but growth. Bruce Lee's legacy was never about invincibility. It was about honesty, about testing ideas against resistance and accepting results without illusion. In that closed space, without applause or cameras, his philosophy stood exposed and unprotected, and it held firm. The lesson endures decades later. Combat, like life, rewards adaptability. Strength must be guided, power must be efficient, and truth, once revealed under pressure, cannot be denied.